If COVID-19 wasn't dominating the news right now, what would be some of the biggest stories be right now? Egypt and Ethiopia are close to going to war due to Ethiopia building a dam on the Nile River. Ethiopia is diverting some water and limiting water flow to Egypt. The Ethiopian government is refusing to honor previous agreements made that detail the rate at which they will fill the lake behind their dam, and they refuse to negotiate any further with the Egyptians. CRISPR was just successfully injected into a live patient to treat genetically caused blindness. Source: the nearly 2-year-long Ebola outbreak in the DRC has ended. The last patient to be treated has survived. The former king of Spain and his Swiss accounts. Bro, that is crazy. Seems like it's the perfect time to get away with whatever you want. Friend of mine works in accounting and he said his company is planning on seeing a massive spike in fraud with all the bankruptcies expected to occur. People trying to sneak under the radar, so to speak. Not sure it's trying to sneak under the radar versus the jig being up. Like if I embezzled $1 million and things are going well with the company, I can cover it up. The accounts have $1 million less than what management thinks, but the business keeps operating. Suddenly a crisis hits. The company needs to spend that million, and there's no way I can conceal that it isn't there. Boom. Fraud detected. This is what happened to a previous boss of mine. He wasn't letting us write off uncollectible invoices, usually duplicate invoices, so it looked like a lot of money was owed to us. Then a downturn hit and the board wanted to borrow against the large accounts receivable balance but couldn't because the bank did an audit which showed those invoices are all uncollectible. I had to quit the job because he kept trying to get me, the accountant, to say those invoices were collectible, but I simply wouldn't because I knew they weren't. If I'd have known why he wanted me to lie, I would have gone above him, but I thought he was just an idiot. And the fact that through those accounts he received 100 meh from Saudi Arabia and that he's being sued in the UK for threatening his ex lover, all the while Spanish courts refused to open an investigation. Don't you mean Spanish courts refused to open an inquisition? The one time a Spanish inquisition was expected, and they didn't come through. Earn it bill. It seeks to end encryption in the USA. It would be a huge hit to online free speech. One of the main routes into downtown Seattle, the West Seattle Bridge, was closed yesterday because cracks in support beams made it structurally unsound. It will take several months to fix and will not reopen until it's done. This would normally destroy the entire Seattle commute, but it happened right now, so it's barely even a blip on the local news. Astronomer here. We might have a bright naked eye comet next month in the northern hemisphere, our first since 1997. Comet C. 2019 Atlas Y4 is brightening really quickly, and by May might be one of the brightest things in the night sky. I mean, comets are notoriously tricky to predict in brightness, as it might just break apart as it gets closer to the sun. But it's really exciting to think about, albeit no one has heard about it because of the pandemic. Though granted, doesn't a pandemic need a bright comet? Edit. You might be able to get it in binoculars right now, or at least have fun trying. Here is a star chart for it, and yes, the last bright northern hemisphere great comet was Hale Bopp, which was up for about a year to the naked eye. If you were a southern hemisphere resident in 2006, however, you probably remember Comet McNaught. Edit 2, because many are asking, that bright star in the evening sky is actually Venus. It's around its peak brightness and height right now, and you should go take a look if your social distancing allows it. Might as well take a break from Netflix and look at a whole nother planet. Edit 3. No, there is no chance of the comet hitting us or affecting life on Earth beyond potentially getting bright. I would hope the locusts plaguing East Africa, the Middle East, and the Indian subcontinent. It's describing some swarms as being the size of New York, and they are eating their harvest, threatening widespread famine. I think without coronavirus we would mobilize to try to control this population the way we did for Zika carrying mosquitoes in the Americas. Edit. This NPR article describes how in 2018 an unfortunate series of cyclones from the Indian Ocean hit an extremely remote area of the Arabian Peninsula known as the Empty Quarter. This produced extraordinary rain and gave them what they needed to breed, because a second cyclone hit occurred during their breeding cycle. Instead of drying out and having most of their population die out in the desert, the population exploded. In favorable conditions they can multiply by 400x their population every 6 months. Then they mass migrated. Also for clarity, a swarm was identified as 3 times the size of NYC. Probably the oil price war actually. Saudi Arabia is trying to force the Russians into cutting production since they won't play ball with OPEC+, and US shale might pay the price as we need high cost for this entire industry to function. The insider trading scandal in Congress. Nth room case in Korea. Telegram porno sexual slavery ring with 74 victims including underage girls. The Telegram groups has estimated at least 10 to 30,000 subscribers. The Nth room. Perpetrators are accused of luring victims, including minors, into sending sexually explicit photos and videos. In some cases, this escalated to using blackmail to force victims into increasingly violent acts, including sexual assault. Absolutely disgusting. I'm surprised that this news didn't get bigger. Internationally. Edit. Reporters at Cookminilbo observed about 25,000 users across 30 such chat rooms. The government is trying to basically ban encryption and start imprisoning website owners if their users say the wrong things. Yes, the Hong Kong protests are still ongoing.